And he said, this is one thing if you're faithful, God, iwagas na ay, timang ko anak ka. You know what? They were all so quiet when he said, did you know that Adeline had been like this in Bontoc? In fact, the academic supervisor and even the superintendent would say, I wish we had 7 more Adelines in the office. And it was something, but I didn't take it as pride. They just saw how you work. So you work. Ore noon mang appreciate ka na kayo, please. Remember that God is there watching over you. Amen. No one may appreciate you, but God is always there. And then, I had my daughter. I was paying more. I did not yet receive my salary. And he was receiving less than 200. And I find that I was paying more. At that time, we were paying 15 pesos per month for one who would help you at home. But it was big amount because even just a can of pan was 4 pesos, a can of milk. They were offering me to apply to make the form 212. I think it's 212, form 212, to fill up in order that I'll be taken as when I started work in Bontoc. But I didn't say no, I'm sorry, no. Thank you. He was busy with his wood carving. That has been that and I'm sorry, no. And he confronted me, my superintendent confronted me, and he said, are you sure? Is your husband, is Moses, agreeable that you would do? Yes, sir. I would rather take care of our child. I sacrificed that, having served the government for, I think it was 14 or 15 years. And they were saying for me to accomplish my GSIS so I can come, but I don't know why. The Lord, since childhood, we learned about sacrifice. We learned about being simple. We learned about being satisfied with whatever there is. As I went ahead to be reading the Bible and I saw Paul said, I am satisfied in want and in plenty. But I thank God for simple parents, prayerful parents, and simple parents that has taught us to be simple and be content with whatever there is. So that had been in me, and so I did not. And they said, do you know that you can be charged with subordination? Yes, sir. Charge me if you have to. I was just so submitted. But then, it's okay. It's okay then. If you have to leave, then leave to take care of your child. Because what was being given was minus what my transportation would be from Baguio to Trinidad, but it's good that I had a good employer also, an understanding employer. So he said, go and nurse your baby. So instead of having snacks at 10, I would go to Dison and breastfeed my baby, and then go back to Trinidad to work. But one thing, this living in Bontoc, by the way, she was a baby. I would put her in a stroller to go to the office while I was pregnant with my second baby. I would go, I didn't have a companion. I would put her in a stroller, take her to the office. She would play under the table of an empty table while I would be working, and then would take her home again. And they saw that because there were things that I would bring home to work at home and bring back the next day. In fact, I would always be the first, besides one janitor, to be in the office. By 7:30, I'll be there. And yet we start work at 8 o'clock. I'm telling this for each one to be encouraged.
Amen.
on sacrifice and to show respect to your boss, to do things not to please your boss. But in my life, I can see God had been always there, watching and providing and everything. So those were the things that had been that I have seen how God had been with me. So just as I said a while ago, I think they were really trainings for me to be able to persevere, to be able to persevere with the upcoming nagragrabbing persecutions.
Amen.
So I thank God for that. And after we went to Baguio, after I gave up my job, we then had to transfer to his parents' house. That was the start. The children were starting to be up, to grow up. And came a time when we were in church, and there was this visitation by one of our seminarians, those that would study in the seminary, and they would come before we transferred to their place. Some came, and I remember having questioned him, asked him, why is it that in church, of course I grew in church. My grandfather was a bishop. My uncle was a bishop. So I grew in church. And I asked this seminarian, I said, why is it that I found in church, it's always the same gospel or epistle throughout the year. It's by seasons namin, nanya? It's Trinity, Advent, Christmas, and Easter, like that. And he said, win narud. But this priest of ours said, did you know that one of the true churches is the Anglican Church, he said. He mentioned there are only 5 true churches now. Okay, then we started. Okay, we were already in Baguio. We were in their house. He was assigned to in stewardship because we were members in Resurrection. So with the 3 children, awan pa ni Rachel. With the 4 children, we would go from church to church. He was assigned to go and encourage stewardship in the other churches, Anglican churches in Baguio. So that was the time that we traveled from in Ocab down to Antamok, and in Trinidad, and in Pico, and in all the other Anglican churches, for him to encourage about giving. Because he found out that we have a small church, the Living Word Church, which was the first charismatic church in Baguio. That's why one lady testified that she found Christ in Baguio because of this Living Word. It was the first charismatic group in Baguio. And when he was assigned the stewardship, he went from barrio to barrio and found out that there are so many Anglican members that left the church because of giving. But anyway, and he compared the offerings of this living church, Mapanay students, comparing it to the Church of the Resurrection, whose members would be given pledges of 5 pesos, 1 peso, and those are the pledges. 50 centavos, 1 peso. And so he found out that there's so many who left the church because of giving. And so when we went to Trinidad and on to Pico, with all the children following us, going with us, a distant uncle of mine said, now you are here, you're going to teach about giving? And I left the church at the Epiphany because Father Envelope, he always mentions about giving. But anyway, when he started teaching there in the church, even the priest himself admitted, he said, that's true what Moses was telling us about. Even us, we are guilty of that. At the time, he started already Bible studies in his office until finally it grew and we would start to go to Lions Club, P. Burgos in the morning and Lions Club in the afternoon. And persecutions started to come in. And when he started to teach baptism, they did not know, they did not understand what baptism meant. He was a member of the vestry, and some members of the vestry had to call him and question him. But before they were going to question him, we gathered our first prayer group. They came to the house and we prayed at Piborgos on giving. And they said, what is this, what you are trying to teach about baptism? And he started being persecuted. Yeah, that was first persecution already against baptism. Why is he baptizing? And he said, what is this baptism? And there was a meeting of the vestry at Brent School. And I don't have to be mentioning names. But a high official in government said, by the way, what is this? Moses, will you explain this baptism of John? And there was persecution. And then came surveillance already. Somebody came and checked whether we were giving pledges in church. But because he was teaching about pledge, and they were giving pledge, they did not accept tithe. So we started giving more on the pledges. And so they found out that we really had our names. We were pledging in church. And so they said, okay, but the problem is on baptism. So they started talagang going from place to place, threatening already the believers in Sagada and elsewhere. They should understand, they do not know where to be buried when they will die. These were the persecutions. But anyway, Bible studies started. He started a group. And from the very beginning, I don't know why, but I didn't like the idea of one of the members when I have to be preparing snacks or meals for him and his first team. They would go to the barangays, saying, "Oh my goodness, they did not accept her." So I was about to shake my feet, shoes off. Immediately, that I felt it was so bad for one who was supposed to go and evangelize. She did not persevere. There was no patience, and she was already saying she will shake off the dust from her feet. So that gave a negative feeling towards me. And for all the following years, we found out why, and finally she was out from that. But anyway, he started going out. He started first with 2, and they went to Tabuk. But then the start of the first one of the outreaches, it was just the movies. We were showing movies. And in Dilakay, our team were the members of the prayer group. There were, I think, 5 ladies from Quirino Hill. And with Mrs. But she died. And we went to Dilakay. And what he usually does is after the movie, there would be lecture in the morning. So in Dilakay, Pantabangan, we went there. And after the lecture in the morning, there were 8 that were baptized already.